I'm Sharice Gibson along with Eric Polson of WWL-TV New Orleans, and we will be moderating tonight's debate. The primary election is Saturday, October 14th. If no one wins more than 50% of the vote that night, then the top two vote getters will head to a runoff election in November.
And we have 5 of the top polling candidates in our debate tonight. And we'll go in order of, there was a draw, we'll tell you more about that. But we'll start off with State Treasurer John Schroeder, State Senator Sharon Hewitt, former President and CEO of the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry, Stephen Wagasback, Attorney Hunter Lundy, and former Transportation Secretary Sean Wilson. By the way, the candidate who is leading in most polls, including our exclusive poll, is Jeff Landry. We invited Jeff Landry to this debate. He declined, made a bit of news about that, but he will not be here tonight, but we're glad to have you all here. And the rules are pretty simple for this. You'll be asked questions by journalists through this hour-long debate. Each candidate will have a minute to answer. If another candidate is calls out somebody's name, then that candidate whose name was called out will have 30 seconds to rebut that comment. During the debate, we'll have 2 lightning rounds, and we know politicians hate lightning rounds. These are yes and no questions. And so we'd like you to keep it at yes and a no. The questions are based on some of the responses to a poll commissioned by WWL-TV and our debate partners. And the order in which you are seated and the way we'll start the questioning was done by a lottery, and it was under the supervision of the nonprofit and nonpartisan Public Affairs Research Council.
All right, with that in mind, we have John Schroeder. You are our first candidate tonight. Now, several of you have campaigned that you will crack down on violent crime in the state by putting offenders behind bars. But according to an analysis that was done by the Times-Picayune and numbers by the FBI, even when Louisiana incarcerated the most people per capita in the country, we still had the highest murder rate in the nation. Now, as governor, what can you actually do from the state level to stop violent crime? And really, are you proposing anything other than jailing more offenders? Again, you have 1 minute to respond.
Well, look, my first professional career was in law enforcement. I have a degree in criminal justice from Southeastern. Fought crime at a high level in this country. Former narcotics detective. I've worked on every felony crime that you could imagine. But look, I'll be the biggest crime-fighting governor that's ever served in Louisiana because of my background between the military and my law enforcement time. But the bottom line is we have to, crime fighting, it isn't always about putting somebody in jail. It's more about how do you deter that crime? How do you prevent that crime? Mental health is a huge problem. We have a lot of people sitting in jails today because of our mental health crisis in this state that has to be dealt with. But as governor, we're going to have the top state troop in America. We're going to fund them, we're going to train them, we're going to educate them, but we're going to hold them to a very high standard and hold them accountable to the public.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Schroeder. Ms. Hewitt.
Thank you for hosting us tonight. One of the underlying problems with crime is drugs, and fentanyl in particular has become a big problem throughout our communities. This last legislative session, I passed a bill to basically be tough on fentanyl manufacturers and these clandestine labs, as well as those that are dealing fentanyl, because they're attacking our young people. Young people quite often are making bad decisions because of these counterfeit pills. And we know from our experience with heroin that when you throw the book at the dealers and those that are manufacturing with a tough on crime message, that we will eradicate fentanyl just as we did heroin. That's the first thing. I also agree with the treasurer. Mental health is a big issue and we need to fund that and do better. Overall, we don't have enough boots on the ground in terms of law enforcement. I will have academies for the state troopers so that we continue to train. I will pay them so that we will keep them, and we will have...
All right, Ms. Hewitt, of course, you made it up. Thank you so much, Mr. Wagasback.
We need more law enforcement on the street. We're down about 200 state troopers at the state police level. When you talk to local sheriffs and police officers, we're down there as well. Inflation has driven up wages for everyone, so it's harder to recruit police. We have to back them, pay them, and train them. The second thing is technology. license plate readers, body cams, street side cams in high crime areas, touristy areas. The more the state can use surplus dollars to put that video surveillance in place, the more we can prove crimes without people having to testify because they're scared to do it because of retribution. The last thing is we have a juvenile violent crime crisis in our state. A lot of young offenders are out on the streets committing violent crimes, so we have to create facilities where we can bring them in, take them off the streets away from that tragic issue, but also give them some of the retraining, the drug treatment, the mental health treatment they need so we can turn them in to be a more productive part of society.
All right, Mr. Wackersbach, thank you so much. Mr. Lundy.
Education is hooked directly to crime. We have to start young and we prevent crime. We have to have children that can read and write. We have to have children that can communicate. And we have to start pre-K. We have to start when they're 3 and 4 year olds. There's a direct link between education and reading and incarceration, including reading as an adult in prison. There's a recent study out that says there's a 6 to 7% reduction in recidivism when you have a prisoner that gets out that can read. So yes, we have the longest penalties in the nation of our prisoners. We have one of the highest murder rates, but education and crime are mixed. So we start with our children and we get them out of poverty, we get them working, and then we make sure that our prisons, we're educating them, we're making sure they get out, they can have a trade, they can read and write, and they won't go back. They have a place to live and they have a job, they'll never go back.
All right, Mr. Lundy, thank you so much. Mr. Wilson.
Let me take a few seconds just to introduce myself to your viewing audience. I'm Sean Wilson, candidate for governor, a native son of New Orleans, Louisiana. Grew up in Algiers. My mom still lives in the shotgun house I grew up in. And so you've got someone who understands what it means to live in a big city and someone who's lived in a smaller town as well. In order to address crime, we have to be thoughtful. The fact that the leading candidate in this campaign is the chief law enforcement officer of the state has failed to show up, no different than he did tonight. The first thing you have to do is show up and be engaged. As a candidate for governor and as governor, I will make the investments that we need to ensure that local law enforcement has the resources and the capacity to build and do their jobs effectively. I'm also going to invest in the workforce development so that we can have a law enforcement capacity across the state so that law enforcement agencies have the number of people they need. You've got to invest in mental health, you've got to invest in education, you've got to invest in reentry programs and preventive measures as well.
All right, as we mentioned earlier in the program, that we've partnered with media outlets across the state, so this is being broadcast across Louisiana. And we're starting with a question from one of our partners, The Advocate and the Times-Picayune.
Good evening, I'm Stephanie Grace. 9 insurance companies that once did business in Louisiana have gone under, and at least a dozen stopped writing homeowners policies in the state. Prices are way up, and about 130,000 families are now insured through Citizens, the state-run insurer of last resort. Given all this, what steps would you take as governor to make Louisiana more attractive to insurance companies and to make homeowners insurance more affordable?
Because this is such an important topic, I mean, I hear about insurance from everybody. We want to reiterate, what steps would you take to make the state more attractive to insurance companies to come here? We're losing them, Florida's losing them, and to make homeowner insurance more affordable. As we said, we're going to rotate, so we'll start with Sharon Hewitt. You have 1 minute.
Thank you. Insurance is one of the biggest issues that are affecting our families. I get emails all the time from people who are afraid they're about to lose their homes because they can't afford the insurance. We have 2 problems in Louisiana, and it's not because we have too many hurricanes. We regulate the industry different than other states, and we are a very litigious state. Those 2 things contribute greatly to the fact that insurance companies do not want to work here. They do not want to write policies here. I will do several things. First of all, I will have a special session immediately after being sworn in as governor to address this crisis and work with our new insurance commissioner to put forth good, sound legislative policy. Some of the things that we need to change, for example, we need to allow insurance companies to operate in a free market and to set their rates. Current law in Louisiana allows the commissioner to establish their rates. That does not allow the insurance companies to manage the risk or to manage their portfolio.
Stephen Wackersbach.
This is the biggest immediate crisis we have in Louisiana. People can no longer afford to live in their home. They're having to make choices between food, medicine, or their insurance. It's unacceptable. A special session will be called when I'm elected. I've already worked with Tim Temple, the incoming insurance commissioner, to put together that agenda. Yes, we have to ensure that the market is competitive, but also we must double down on legal reform, take out some of those frivolous lawsuits so we can put those savings out of one trial lawyer pocket into the savings of homeowners' pockets is where they should be. The other piece is the adjuster shuffle. How many people have gone through and tried to make a claim and you have to go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different adjusters? It's a delay stall tactic that drives people crazy. It's unacceptable. We're going to create adjuster training academies in each of our coastal universities so we can train our neighbors to be adjusters. So next time a storm hits, people who understand our community can come in and help you process that claim. You won't have to wait for some stranger to the northeast to come in. It'll be someone who understands you and your community that'll speed up claims and make the experience much better for all of us.
Thank you. Hunter Luddy, same question.
Well, we have companies that left because insurance companies lie. I know personally after the Laura storm in August 27th of 2020 that the adjusters came to Louisiana and they didn't walk into a house with a moisture meter. They wouldn't advance any money, and you ask why? Well, go look at the tax returns, go look at the payments the CEOs made at the end of 2020. They paid themselves millions of dollars of bonuses because they took the premiums and didn't pay the claims. When you shut the justice system down, that's what happened. And it was shut down during COVID. So we saw a crisis because of Laura, Delta, then Ida. So everybody has to come to the table. Yes, I'm going to call the session in. I'm going to call in insurance companies, and they're going to come back. Right now, State Farm's taking the market back because they're getting rid of the ones that they didn't want to have here. So everybody's going to have to speak truth. Everybody's going to have to act truthfully. Everybody's going to have to come to the table. Yes, we'll do something about the FEMA program. We will fight the homeowners program.
Thank you. Sean?
As I travel the state and talk to residents, North and South Louisiana, individuals are reeling from the cost of insurance. Absolutely, we will have a special session, but more importantly, I'll tell you the type of things that we're going to do. We're going to look at adjuster accountability. We're going to look at transparency. We're going to look at passing laws that will require payments by a certain time to ensure that individuals get what they deserve and that we hold the big insurance companies accountable. The fact that the state bailed them out with $45 million was necessary, but it's not sustainable. We have to go a little bit further than that. We have to pass common sense laws that's going to affect whether or not an individual's driving record or their credit allows their premiums to be set. Those are the types of things that I'm going to advocate as governor. We will need someone to hold those big insurance companies accountable, and I'm the only candidate in this race that has over 25 years of working with individuals, whether it's in Congress, in corporate America, or in government at different levels, to get things done. My record stands out in terms of delivering results and putting people first. That's the kind of governor I'm going to be here to protect you and to help you survive these types of crises.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. And last but not least, John Schroeder.
Look, we're going to have to entrepreneur our way out of this. I have met with the new commissioner. I believe some of our fixes, we don't know what they are yet. You know, one of the great things about it, being an entrepreneur is you get thinkers, you get problem solvers in a room, and you find solutions. But this is crushing the average family in this state. It's also crushing our small mom and pop businesses that can't afford the insurance. And they're normally 60, 90 days from being out of business anyway. I'm going to call a summit. And in that summit, everybody's going to be at the table, from the construction industry, the insurance companies, and the legal community. And I'm not going to advocate. I'm going to be in that room. I'm going to lead this change. We've got to work with the commission to come up with solutions. But at the end of the day, the billboard lawyers are going to have to sit at the table. And you're going to have an opportunity to work with us. And if you don't, then we're going to fix it one way or the other. But for the best of Louisiana, we all have to be at the table to address this problem.
All right. Sharice?
All right, no, this is for you, Eric, about the Supreme Court.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right. After the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, saying it's an issue that the state should decide, Louisiana became one of a number of states that outlaws abortion, with few exceptions.
And I'll take this. And this is such a topic that is discussed all over this country. It is very controversial. After Roe v. Wade was overturned, Louisiana became one of the states that outlawed abortion, except for very few exceptions. Since then, a number of states, including some red states, have let the people, the voters, decide on abortion issues. Most polls across the country, including the poll we did and one at LSU, say it's very important, and they think that the laws here are a bit too strict. Even former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, in that recent GOP debate, said, can't we come to some consensus on this? And because this is such a volatile and personal issue, and considering other states have let their voters decide the abortion issue, would you, if elected governor, ask the state legislature to put this issue on the ballot to let the people decide about the abortion issue instead of politicians? And this time we'll start with Stephen Wagasback.
Thank you for the question, and you're right, it is a very emotional issue. I would not support a ballot initiative on such an important issue. I think it needs to be thoughtful. And I would tell you I'm a pro-life candidate and I'm a pro-life person. Part of that is driven by my faith. Part of that is driven by the experiences my wife and I have had. Our middle son is special needs. Her pregnancy for him was quite troublesome. And early on, we were advised that possibly termination should be the way to go. We refused. We didn't have a second thought on that. To this day, he's an 18-year-old young man. He is the light of our lives. He has made my wife and I, my two other sons, better people, and everyone he touches is a better person because of it. We gave him a chance at life. Every life has a chance to be special, no matter how daunting it appears on day one. And I'm committed to giving every life that chance to be special. Now, one thing we do have to do is be much better at caring for women, both during that pregnancy and after pregnancy, postpartum especially. There are things like hypertension and other issues we have to treat aggressively and be there for the mother, not just through pregnancy, but after pregnancy as well.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lundy.
There's two victims to every abortion. It's the fetus that's killed, and it's the mother who's lost the child. And it's almost as much grief to when it's an intentional removal of a child and an unintentional. And I've seen it firsthand. And so I agree with the legislature and the findings that they've made. I support the fact that they're pro-life and I'm pro-life. And I don't think it needs to be a ballot issue. The state has spoken with the laws in place, and I stand on what they've done already and agree with them.
Thank you. Mr. Wilson?
Well, as a husband and a father, I've always trusted my wife and my daughter to make the decisions that's best for them. And so I don't object to having a ballot initiative to be able to allow the citizens to make these decisions, simply because our legislature has proven the fact that they are too extreme for Louisiana. Many of the residents across our state think we spend too much time talking about extreme issues that won't make us healthier. The reality is it's important to hear them and let them have a say-so in what's going to govern their lives. I will tell you, I'm the only candidate in this campaign that has supported exceptions, and the fact that we have not had exceptions for rape or incest in the life of the mother, given the trigger laws that we have, are putting lives in jeopardy. It's simple as that. If we're going to be healthier, if we want to really talk about maternal care and maternal mortality, we've got to absolutely give individuals a choice to have some decisions on how to govern themselves. That should be decisions that they make with their doctor, their lord, and their spouses, and or individuals for their children. So I trust the individuals of this state. We have had too many constitutional amendments. We should have one for this one as well.
Thank you. John Schroeder?
I fully support our legislature. This is probably one of the biggest issues that I've watched, one of those social kind of issues where the majority of the legislature has agreed. So I'm pro-life. I support the laws that are in place. I've watched bipartisanship on this issue for years now. I see no reason to do that. This is the process we live by, and the people are represented by every legislator that they send to that building, both in the House and Senate. Look, I'm a brand new foster granddaddy. Hi, Evelyn. And look, there's a lot of ways, a lot of things that we can improve on in this state, especially in a foster program, adoptions. There's a lot of things we can do to help facilitate. But my wife and I are as pro-life as you're going to get, and I support the laws in place, and I commend the legislature because I believe this is one of those issues where they've worked pretty good on.
And Sharon Hewitt?
Thank you. I'm unapologetically pro-life. When the Dobbs decision leaked, we were in legislative session 2 years ago, and we knew that every state was going to be in a legal climate after that. So I worked with others to make sure that we reviewed all of the laws on the books in Louisiana to make sure that we closed any loopholes and took care of any discrepancies in our laws to make sure that we could withstand any of the legal challenges. I also passed legislation that made it illegal for providers, for mail order people to send in mail order prescription pills for abortion. So not holding the mothers accountable, but the providers that are shipping it in illegally and trying to skirt the laws of Louisiana. This is a very pro-life state, and I do think the voters have input in that they elect the legislators. And as the treasurer said, I think the legislature has it right, and I support the laws as we have them on the books.
Well, thank you so much for your responses to the questions so far. Now we are going for the first of our 2 rapid fire segments that we have planned for tonight's debate.
And for these questions, we're asking if you can give us a yes or a no answer. And we're going to start out with a question from another one of our media partners.
Candidates, I'm Michael Shingleton from WBRZ in Baton Rouge. As you all know, our area is just plagued with traffic issues, specifically that bottlenecked location of Interstate 10 right through downtown. Work is underway right now to widen it, but there's much more to do. So as our infrastructure ages, some 1,600 bridges in Louisiana are structurally deficient. Lawmakers have proposed adding to the gas tax to fund work in Baton Rouge and across the state. That, though, has been controversial. Do you support increasing the gas tax to fund critical repairs to roads and bridges?
All right. As we said, we're asking for a yes or no answer. And just to repeat that again, Hunter Lundy, do you support increasing the gas tax to fund critical road and bridge repairs in the state?
No.
Mr. Wilson?
No.
No.
Mr. Short?
No.
No.
Okay.
All right, got through that rather quickly. Next question. The second question in our lightning round. Black households in Louisiana, they earn half of what white households earn, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. Do you believe that closing the wealth gap should be a priority of an administration that is led by you? We want to get a yes or no question only, and we're starting with Sean Wilson.
Absolutely.
Mr. Schroeder?
Yes.
Ms.
Yes.
Hewitt?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you. You got it, baby.
Okay, yeah, that is the end of our, I'm sorry. A lot of stuff going on here. That's the end of our first rapid round. We'll have another one coming up a little later in the program.
All right, we want to get back to those long form questions. We start with the issue of our exclusive poll found really was the second most important to voters, that is after crime, and that would be education, an issue that is affecting all of us here. This next question from one of our media partners has to do with teacher pay.
I'm KATC anchor Taylor Toole. Louisiana ranks 43rd in the nation for average teacher salaries, according to the National Education Association. Governor John Bel Edwards proposed a permanent raise of $3,000 for educators. In the end, state legislators agreed to give teachers a one-time stipend of $2,000 and $1,000 stipend for support staff. If you were governor, would you give teachers a permanent raise? Why or why not?
All right, we want to start again with John Schroeder. You will have 1 minute to respond. Would you give teachers a permanent pay raise?
Absolutely, yes. I know the budget process and the ins and outs of the money as well as anybody, being your state legislator and for 9 years on the budget committee. I actually was on the education committee when we got teachers 8, 9 years ago, 10 years ago to the Southern average. Absolutely. I support we will find a permanent way to handle it. We'll also find a permanent way to raise the salaries of our state police, other law enforcement, the people who go and build our communities day in, day out. It's paramount. If we want more teachers, then we need to pay them. In the business world, that's how it works. That's what I bring to government. I run it like a business, just like I would want my employees treated at home. I treat them the same way. Teachers need to be respected, and one way to show that is through their pay. And you will recruit quality people when you pay them well.
All right, Sharon Hewitt.
Education is the silver bullet. It helps get families out of poverty, it puts people to work, and it starts with good, high-quality teachers, and they have to be paid. So in my administration, yes, teachers will be paid at or above the Southern average. That will be included in the MFP, the standard salary, not as a stipend. But we have to get our kids reading. I have done lots of work in the area of literacy. Right now, Louisiana is one of 3 states where our literacy scores have improved because we're back to teaching phonics. This year I began tackling math, numeracy skills. So our kids are learning the foundational math skills in 4th through 8th grade. Under my administration, we will move into a much more technology-rich education system. We will have computer classes, kindergarten through 12th grade. We will have computer coding at our high schools, and we will have our students prepared for the workforce of tomorrow.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hewitt. Stephen Wackersbach.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's really responsive to what I'm hearing on the ground. When you talk to teachers of today, they're fraying at the seams. Pay is an important piece, and yes, we will make sure they are paid. It's funded in the MFP funding formula, and it's sustainable and annual. It has to be that way. But they're fraying at the seams also because of the mental health crisis in our schools. We're asking teachers today to be a counselor, a mental health coach, a career guidance, and sometimes a parent for these children. It's not sustainable. So we have to also inject in our schools other support staff around to take some of those burdens off of those teachers' back so they can focus on what's needed, elevating kids into reading and writing and young potential of the future workforce we need today. If we can take some of that paperwork and bureaucracy and pressure off their backs, give them sustainable funding, I think you'll see more of a rewarding experience for them, and you'll see them be able to be more impactful so they can focus on what they do well and what they signed up to do, which is teach the future generation of Louisiana.
All right, thank you so much for your answer there. Mr. Lundy?
I've said it on the radio, I've said it on the TV. We have to pay our teachers, we have to pay our law enforcement people, we have to pay our firemen. We're 43 in paying our teachers. We're 48 in paying our law enforcement. We're dead last in paying our firemen. So yes, they get a permanent raise. It's there. It's in the Constitution. We can give them the money, and we can give the supplemental pay to the policemen and the firemen. But you know, if we don't treat the people that take care of us the right way, how's the rest of the nation going to continue to look at us? And I'm telling you, that's the reason why we're the #1 poverty state in the nation, is because of the way everybody else looks at us, because we've got blight, we got bad problems, and we can fix it with education. So it starts young. I agree that we have to start when they're 3 years old. So we have to invest. I come from a family of educators, if you can't figure that out. Kindergarten teachers. Sister's retired. My mother was one, a college professor. My daughter teaches in a community college. We have to start when they were 3. We got to get them, a child's brain is formed 80% by the time they're 3, 90% by the time they're 4. So we have to start right then and there.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Lundy. Sean Wilson.
Well, just respectfully, I thought I was supposed to go first on that one, but that's okay. Let me just tell you this. I'm a product of the public school system. I grew up in public schools, went to public universities. More importantly, I've been married to Rocky, my wife, for 28 years. She started off in early childhood education. She's now an assistant principal, and she's been a teacher for many years in between. I know firsthand the plight of our teachers, and the idea that there's deflection around, are we going to make it a commitment and a real commitment, is scary. The fact that everyone wants to talk about changing education, but no one wants to talk about how do you sustain that. If you talk about paying at the Southern Regional average, you're just paying at the top of the bottom half. We need to develop a system that we guarantee teachers the salaries that they need to be attractive. The fact that we've got some teachers in our state starting off at $37,000 is laughable. If we want them to stay in Louisiana and work for our children and educate our babies, we need to make sure we pay them. That is what it takes, and it's going to take a governor like Sean Wilson to put it in the Constitution, to make sure they get paid and that they have regular increases in the process. Give them the certainty that they deserve.
Mr. Wilson, thank you so much. Well, this next question is from another media partner and focuses on the economy and employment. Both were in the top 5 issues voters are most concerned about. That is according to our exclusive statewide poll.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Pine-Floor from KTBS TV in Shreveport. Name one specific thing you would do to attract business to Louisiana, and by doing so, would keep young, educated professionals from leaving the state.
Well, you will have 1 minute again to respond. We begin with Ms. Sharon Hewitt. What is one specific thing you would do to attract more business to the state of Louisiana?
Well, there's 2 deterrents, I will say. I'm going to talk about 2 things. Businesses, first of all, want a stable, predictable, simple tax climate. We have to get to where we have a fair tax climate for businesses. We have to get to 0 state personal income tax, and I think that we're on a path to do that. I have a Hewitt blueprint, by the way, on my website where you can read more about my ideas on how we're going to do that. We also have to get rid of the lawsuits. We are one of the worst states in the country in terms of lawsuits, and we have to do legal reform. Businesses do not want to be here. Oil and gas companies are a great example of that. The Attorney General has sided with the trial lawyers in suing the oil and gas companies and driving that industry out of our state. As a former oil and gas executive, I understand the energy business, and I'm going to make sure that those companies know that Louisiana wants to be a leader in energy. We want to be energy independent, and I'm going to make sure they have a place right here in Louisiana.
Ms. Hewitt, can you clarify lawsuits from whom?
Ask me again, I'm sorry?
Lawsuits from whom?
The Attorney General has partnered with the trial lawyers in suing 200 oil and gas companies in Louisiana, and he is not a friend of the oil and gas industry. This is something that is driving the industry, our #1 industry in the state, out of the state of Louisiana. This is our state's bread and butter. The entire country depends on Louisiana to provide energy.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Hewitt. All right, Mr. Stephen Wagesback.
It's more than one thing to attract new business to Louisiana, so I'll try to be quick. First of all, we do have to simplify our tax code and make it more easy to comply, especially for small business. Right now, it's very complicated to pay their sales taxes. You have to have a streamlined process for them. The second thing is workforce. Companies are around the move in America, and they're going to states that have a qualified workforce, someone that can read and write and have good soft skills and stay off drugs. We're going to revamp our workforce development system and provide that. The last thing is Baton Rouge has tried for years to make every region of the state look and feel the same. The strengths and weaknesses in the New Orleans region are different than in Northeast Louisiana, Northwest, Central, et cetera. So I'm going to have regional goals for each one. Sometimes it's a mega site for the next auto plant. Sometimes it's developing that river corridor here between Baton Rouge and New Orleans to bring in new manufacturing. Every region will have its own game plan and a partner in me as governor, and we'll exercise each region's plan to be attractive to the entire country.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Wagesback, for that answer. Mr. Hunter Lundy.
Yes. To get jobs, we have a twofold approach. Right now, clean energy is one of the approaches. So we announced 2 weeks ago that there's going to be a green hydrogen plant built in Calcasieu Parish. Next, they've already approved the solar area that's going to feed the green energy, and the reason why is they're going to create methanol, because all of your maritime business in Europe is going to methanol. So we're going to have methanol making plants all over the state of Louisiana. They're going to build green hydrogen plants everywhere. We got Shell doing a biodiesel facility for $1.6 billion in Convent, Louisiana. They're going to build metallic blades for the wind farms in Iberia, Louisiana. So this has all already happened. I agree, we want our oil and gas industry to come back full force, in fact. But as a governor, my job is to get jobs for Louisiana. It's to get every bit of revenue we can to create work for our people. And so it's a two-pronged approach. But right now, clean energy is on and going full force into effect.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. Sean Wilson.
Well, as governor, I'm going to be wise. That means we're going to do workforce development and build a workforce for the future. I'm also going to invest in infrastructure. We're going to build the types of things and leverage the infrastructure we have, whether it's the Mississippi River, our rail system, our port system, our interstates. Look at what we have in the state. We cannot be beaten when it comes to the natural infrastructure we have. We're also going to talk about sensible reforms in terms of taxes, because businesses, small and large, need transparent, predictable, understandable tax structures, and that's going to be a paramount piece of what we're going to do in my administration. And then last, we're going to invest in education. That's a secondary part of building that workforce, because we're going to have to ensure that vocational education and universities and all of the educational systems with K-12 are input and in line and in sync with the jobs of the future, whether it's clean energy, whether it's dealing with renewables, hydrogen, wind, electrification, all of those elements. A Wilson administration will absolutely be wise in terms of growing business in this state.
All right, Mr. Wilson, thank you so much. And John Schroeder.
Look, I've said this before, there's really no new ideas that you haven't heard. We've heard all the ideas. This really comes down to leadership and who has the experience and how to do that. I say this a lot. We have to entrepreneur our way through these things, but people are leaving this state for the same reason they're not coming. We don't have safe communities. We don't have a first-class public school system, and you constantly have to deal with the cronyism and the corruption of this state. I am tired of the 85 percentile who go to work every day, do what they're supposed to do, pay their taxes, follow the rules, only have the 15% benefit from the politics of all of this. I've seen it. I watched it. You manage a $60 billion operation, you see it all the time. It's one of the major reasons I'm running. We need a CEO who is incorruptible, the rules will be the rules and access is equal to all. because if you can't do that, all these other ideas won't matter. It's the foundation that we have a problem with.
All right, Mr. Schroeder, thank you so much.
And our next question, recently the Louisiana NAACP called for a national travel advisory for tourists and events coming to Louisiana after the state legislature passed several bills aimed at the LGBTQ community. The governor vetoed those bills. He was overridden on one of them. With that in mind, what would you say to conferences, other events, even sporting events who might be reticent to come to Louisiana, spend their tourism dollars because of the state's direction toward the LGBTQ community? We'll start with Stephen Wagasback. You have 1 minute.
I think Louisiana is one of the most welcoming states that the country has. And I think if you really talk to people who visit here, they would tell you the same thing. You talk to anyone who comes to Louisiana, they say they get here, they have a warm, welcoming experience as second to no other. And we've earned that reputation, and we have that reputation. Now, when it comes to the LGBTQ issue, I think the legislature was talking about impact on children. And we have a duty to protect children in this state. And there was a bill that came up dealing with sex change operations for children. And that's what the issue was. I think the legislature made the right idea, the right call. We have to protect children at all costs. I don't think that hurts our reputation. I think that helps our reputation. I think the country is looking to come here to not just enjoy when they travel and visit, but also know that we're going to have the values that represents them and represents what this country is all about. And I think that's what we've done.
Thank you. Mr. Lundy?
Yes, it was an issue about transgenderism, I think. And so I've said all along, and I think that we agree that don't mess with our children. That's it. What consenting adults agree to do, that's fine. But this was an issue about that issue, and I know that it's a volatile issue. It's one that sparks extremism. But I'm sorry, that's the way I believe. We don't mess with our kids. And a consenting adult does what they want to do, whether I agree with them or not. You know, I have my belief system, other people have their belief system, and they can do what they choose to do. But we have the best culture in America. New Orleans should be the best tourist city in the nation, and it has been in years past. I think it will be again. Under my governorship, we're going to be the #1 tourist state in the nation. We're going to make sure that all the cities the blight is cleaned up, the poverty is removed, transformation takes place, the crime is reduced, and we'll have the #1 tourist state in the nation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lundy. I'm sorry, Mr. Wilson.
You know, we've spent $50,000 a day of public tax dollars to debate issues that infringe on people's rights. And I would say to those companies that see these extreme policies that are a turnoff for them to make investments, to move businesses here, I would say to them that Louisiana is much better than that. The majority of our citizens don't support those extreme policies, as you've noted in polling data that says we spend too much time on issues that don't make us safer, smarter, healthier, or wealthier. I think it's incumbent upon us as citizens to respect people for who they are and allow them to achieve the things that they want to achieve in life. When you talk about these issues of why people come to Louisiana, it's our culture, it's the unique nature of who we are. The fact that on the campaign trail, I've talked to parents who are afraid for their children now because of these extreme policies and positions. I've talked to people who are leaving our state, doctors, professionals, people that we all have said tonight that we want them to stay. Part of the brain drain is that we're forcing that drain out with some of these extreme policies, and I think it's time to put those extreme policies to bed.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Mr. Schroeder.
Look, I want to say a million things. First of all, this is an attack on a fiber of the family, based on what the Old Testament says. This wasn't an attack on some individual. This is an attack to the family culture of the family unit as we know it. And that's a problem. You know, what you do on your own, that's up to you. That's between you and your God. I was put on this earth to love people, and I love everybody. I don't care what you do and where you do it. It's not my place to judge or throw the rock. I love this state. I love New Orleans. I'm born and raised here. I love the culture. I love its people. I've sworn many oaths, and I've never sworn only to take care of the Democrats or the Republicans. I say we have to live together and love together. But this was an attack on the fiber of the family, and I fully supported where the legislature was on this issue.
And Senator Hewitt.
Now, this legislation was about protecting children. Children are not old enough to make these kinds of decisions about sex changes. Children are not old enough to smoke or drink or vote or go to the military. This was about protecting children and giving them the protection that they need until they become adults. Adults can make all the decisions they want, and I respect their right to be able to do that. But this was about protecting children. I think we do have a great culture. People visit Louisiana all the time because of our culture and our hospitality and our uniqueness. And I do not believe that this is an issue that is going to stop conventions from coming here. I agree that it is about family, and I think Louisiana stands strong in those principles, and I'm very proud of the vote that we took in the legislature this year on these issues.
Thank you. We appreciate you all staying with time limits too.
All right, another major topic that we have here, multiple studies have been conducted on Louisiana's Cancer Alley, which stretches from New Orleans to Baton Rouge, with 25% of the nation's oil production taking place there. There are dozens of chemical plants, and the closer people live to those plants, the higher risk they have for cancer. That is according to the EPA. And earlier this year, the Department of Justice ordered the Danka plant in LaPlace to reduce emissions. Now, this next question tonight is for our candidates. What is your plan to protect the health of the residents who say chemical plants near their homes have damaged their health while still allowing for those industries to continue to provide jobs to those communities? We begin with Hunter Lundy. You have 1 minute to respond.
I just want an assurance from industry that they're going to comply with the law. You know, we have laws on the books. You know, most of the reporting to get permits for air pollutions are self-reporting. So we need to monitor it, we need to check it out, we need to make sure residents are living safely. I've spent a career helping people in economically deprived communities. I got the whole community of Mossville removed in Calcasieu Parish, 2,000 people, because there was a plume of ethylene dichloride underneath the neighborhood. So I've gotten creosote registered as a carcinogen when they wouldn't do it. I can go on down the list of the products that I was involved with helping communities like this. So it's a real problem. There has to be a balance. I'm an enterprise person. I'm a free market. I'm all about industry, but I'm also about compliance, and I'm also about balance. And if you mess up, clean up. If you spill something, clean it up. If you mess with our air or our water, clean it up and do it right then and there. And they should have monitoring for the people in the community to see whether or not they have health effects.
Well, Mr. Lundy, thank you so much. Sean Wilson.
Well, as governor, I understand the importance of having clean water and clean air. We talk about health outcomes on a regular basis in the state and how unacceptable they are. We have to recognize that both the private sector that's doing business up and down the river as well as on the Gulf Coast, they're here for a reason, to earn a living and have a quality of life. And so are the families that are supporting those industries and living in those communities. Everything from transparency of reporting and accountability are things that will give people the information and the tools that they need. You also have to hold individuals and entities accountable. That's where responsible relationships occur. That's where you have a DEQ to ensure that we have some systems in place to hold them accountable, to make sure that our families and our individuals who are suffering as a result of mistakes are treated fairly and equally, and that they are managed, those situations are managed properly to ensure that people can be safe. There's a way for us to coexist. We have to have a collaborative, communicative relationship, and as a governor, as a candidate, and as a professional in this state for 25 years, we've been able to work together to solve big problems, and this one is no different.
All right, Mr. Wilson, thank you. John Schroeder.
Well, look, I touched on this a little bit. You know, it's we have to be good stewards. I'm a businessman, and in the development business, you have to take care of your community, but you have to listen. And you can't stuff things down their throat. And I don't like the way government decides that they're going to stuff something down a community's throat. So I support that we follow the law, that the rules are the rules, and access is equal to all. That's important, because the public have lost faith and trust in government. And I can tell you, as an Army veteran, it bothers me that our government imposes its will on our communities the way it does, like they've done at Lake Maurepas with this carbon capture issue, like they're doing down south in St. Bernard and in Plaquemine Parish, where the government is imposing its will on the public and telling them, hey, move your families, move your business. We don't care if you've been here for generations. We have to be better at that. Government works for us. It's not us that works for government. So I fully support the families, and if industry is doing something wrong, then they should fix it.
All right, Mr. Schroeder, thank you so much. Sharon Hewitt.
Thank you. This is one of the most regulated industries we have, the refining industry, with all the federal regulations and the state regulations, and they are very regulated. We have to make sure, and I will as governor, to make sure that the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality enforces the permits, enforces the laws, and holds people accountable that don't do that. Because yes, clean air and clean water, everyone deserves that. Everyone is entitled to that. And I do think that one of the things that has been an exciting opportunity for Louisiana in terms of economic opportunity is that almost all of these refineries now are working on carbon capture. And the top 25 projects that have been announced in the state in the last 2 years all have a carbon capture component. That is basically reducing your greenhouse gas emissions and injecting them underground so that our air is cleaner. And so I do think the refineries are going to be leading the way because their constituents require that, as well as their shareholders.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hewitt. Stephen Waxback.
I think we should be proud of the fact that we are the sportsman's paradise, but we're also America's working coast. I mean, we know how to enjoy the outdoors. We have beautiful outdoors, yet we also have great attainable jobs that are fueling the country. Where would America be without Louisiana's energy worker, chemical plant worker, and manufacturing worker? They'd be nowhere. The country depends on us, and so those jobs are also attainable, good jobs. In the parishes where you have those facilities, you have the highest average teacher pay, the highest average income in those parishes. You have small businesses flourishing, and you have a general growth in those areas. And a lot of those are for low-income family jobs that are elevating themselves out of poverty. We should be proud of this track record. We regulate those industries very regularly, and whenever there's a spill, they are forced to clean up. America has some of the strongest environmental safeguards the planet knows. More American energy is better for the country, it's better for the state, and it's better for the planet. So we should be proud and tell that story about the Louisiana Renaissance going down here as many times as we can.
Yeah, Mr. Waxback, I know they have some residents who are in that area who have frequently complained of suffering from living with cancer, having family members who have died from cancer. What can you do to reassure them that they can live next to these companies and be healthy?
There are so many residents in those areas that have a great paying job, that have enjoyed working in those facilities, and they walk in and they have a great paycheck, a great health care, a great life for their children. I hear from people left and right in those areas that are really proud of what they do. I think national groups come down here and try to put a different spin on it. The truth is, the people I talk to in those parishes are proud of what they do for the country, proud of what they do for the state, and proud of the job they do every single day. And I don't think it's right that national folks come in here and try to disparage the hard work they do day in, day out, fueling this country.
I don't know if it's national people coming down. People who live in those areas are saying that they've been in Cancer Alley, and they have complained about that. We've done stories about it here at our station.
And many others are proud of the job they do day in, day out.
I understand
Absolutely.
that.
And so look, that's what I hear in those regions. If you look at those parishes again, these are some of the parishes that have the highest percentage of income, the highest percentage of private insurance, the highest teacher pay. Those parishes are benefiting from those investments. And I think they're proud of that service. And as a state, we have to attract more of those industries. Yes, have strong safeguards in place.
Okay.
But also attract those jobs because they provide lifelines out of poverty into a different way of life.
All right,
May I respond to that?
Yes, you, sir, Mr. Lundy.
Well, you can green belt it. You could go in, and if they're suffering from cancer, if they're having a problem, they can go in and buy it. I mean, you have community action plan groups that meet with the communities that have been adversely impacted. And I know you could probably call Oshner's and you could really find out about how many people have cancer. Over in Southwest Louisiana, you can call MD Anderson and find out who their biggest clientele is. And I am for industry. I'm for development. I'm for them. I just want compliance. And for those that have been adversely affected, they either need to be relocated or they need to be compensated, one of the two. I mean, we're not going to justify a great paying job when our family members are dying of cancer. So I'm sorry. There's other alternatives. You can compensate them, you can move them, you can greenbelt them, but you can have a community action plan and you can move forward with it. And yes, Lundy, I know our greatest paying jobs are along the river, along the ship channels, and I agree with him on the paying of jobs, but I disagree with him.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lundy. We have a couple of other questions and topics we would love for you all to be able to touch on. We are back to our rapid fire questions. You know how this goes, just yes or no responses. All right, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld a ruling that Alabama likely violated the Voting Rights Act and diluted black voting power when lawmakers drew the state's congressional maps.
And this is a case that could affect voting here in Louisiana because our state's facing some similar legal challenges. So our question is, do you support the creation of a second majority-minority district in Louisiana that would strengthen black voting power? We'll start with Sean Wilson.
Absolutely, and it's my hope that the judge draws the map.
It's a yes or no question, I'm sorry.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Schroeder?
I'm going to follow the law, whatever the law is. I mean, y'all ask that question a lot, but I'm going to do whatever the law says.
Okay, Senator Hewitt?
The same. If the legal challenge is withstood, then I will support that.
Mr. Wagerspack?
It's in the courts. Whatever the courts decides, the governor has to help implement.
Mr. Lundy?
From all indications, that is the law, and the answer is yes.
Okay, that was probably a yes answer, so thank you. And that was a hard question, I understand that. Our next question, again, this is rapid fire. Do you support adding COVID vaccines to Louisiana's mandatory school vaccinations? This is a yes or no answer. We'll start with John Schroeder.
No.
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 All right, our next rapid fire question. Do you support increasing the state minimum wage from $7.25 an hour? Yes or no? We begin with Sharon Hewitt.
I'm going to say maybe. I think it's time to have the conversation.
Yes or yes or no, Ms. Hewitt?
I'm on record of having said no in the legislature up until this point.
Okay.
But I do think it's time to have the conversation.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Wagerspack?
No.
Mr. Lundy?
Yes, I support increasing the minimum wage.
And Sean Wilson?
Absolutely, I support it. It's unacceptable to live on $7.25.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. John
Yes.
Schroeder?
All right, thank you. Our next one, again, these are yes or no questions. As governor, would you renew the portion of the state sales tax that's set to expire in the year 2025? We'll start with Mr. Wagerspack. Yes or no?
These are not yes or no questions.
I told you wouldn't like them.
Well, it's not a matter of like or dislike. The fact is, when I'm elected governor, we're going to focus on the 2 years of growing the economy, and that increased investment will mean we will not need
So yes or no, you'd
sales
support
tax
that?
renewal. The goal is not to renew it by growing the economy over the next 2 years.
I'll take that as a no then.
Correct.
Mr.
Yes.
Lundy? Mr.
This
Wilson?
is a time that we should be investing in Louisiana and not going back to the cuts of the Jindal years. Clearly, we need to be maintaining the resources to invest in education,
So that's a yes?
public safety, and infrastructure.
That's a yes?
Absolutely, it's a yes.
Mr. Schroeder?
No, but I think the Senator ought to have an opportunity to answer since everybody else did.
Senator, do you want to say something? Yes or no?
Yeah, I'm going to say no because I don't think we're going to need the revenue. We're going to be fine. We don't have a fiscal cliff.
Okay, let's go to our next rapid fire question. This is another one you're not going to like. As you know, some former state troopers are facing felony charges in connection with the fatal arrest of Ronald Green, a case we all know well. At first, the trooper said that Green died of injuries in a crash following a police chase, but an Associated Press investigation uncovered body cam video that clearly shows Mr. Green was still alive as the white officers beat, stunned, and dragged him by his ankle shackles. So our question, again, a yes or a no, do you think the state police department has a problem with racially biased policing? And we'll start with Mr. Lundy. Yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Schroeder?
I would say they have some problems, but overall, no.
Senator Hewitt?
Yeah, I think we have some bad apples, but I don't think you can say that across the board that we have a problem. So my answer would be no, but I do think that in that case, that was a problem.
Okay. Mr. Wagerspack?
That was a horrific incident, but you can't disparage the entire department because of that horrific incident. No.
Okay.
So considering that others have given more than a yes or no response, let me just qualify my answer. I said yes, but that does not mean that's every officer. I think we have to be thoughtful.
We all get that.
Well, Eric, hold on. I think we have to be thoughtful in how you manage these questions because the questions you're asking are going to put us in a position that doesn't make sense and that we've given others an opportunity to say that. I think it's only fair that we get a chance to explain ourselves.
And I agree with Mr. Wilson.
The fact that I said yes wasn't necessarily an indictment against officers. It was a fact of law enforcement that science and data has supported.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much. Well, we are approaching the close of tonight's debate. And in this final segment, this is an opportunity for you to give the candidates time to speak on some closing remarks.
So we're going to give you 1 minute each to go ahead and tell people why you think you're the best candidate to be the next governor of Louisiana. And we will start with John Schroeder.
Well, look, I'm happy to be here, and I showed up. Unlike the Attorney General, you have to represent and lead all the people of Louisiana, not just the ones that agree with you politically. So I'm bothered that he's not here. He's been a no-show for all these issues, and I think he's been a no-show on crime for the last 8 years. And I think the citizens of Louisiana need to pay attention. Nothing against everybody sitting here. Look, I'm a business guy. I've built my career on business, not politics. I'm 62 years old. My wife and I are grandparents. I'm not here for a career. I'm not here for a job. This is a devotion to me. I bring experience to the table. 10 years in law enforcement and military, 9.5 years in the legislature, over 30 years in a variety of different businesses, all in the metro area, building thousands of jobs, investing our money. We believe strongly in family, and I also believe strongly in leadership, and we got to kill the corruption and cronyism problems in this state.
Thank you very much.
And I want to lead the state to do that.
Senator Hewitt.
This is one of the most important elections in the history of our state. I think it's time for the citizens to draw a line in the sand and say, we've had enough. We don't want to be mediocre anymore. We want to elect people who are going to lead this state in a different way, not the same old political way, but let's elect a leader like an engineer who is a doer, not a talker. I come from an executive leadership position, an engineering executive with a major oil and gas company, where I learned some of the best leadership skills from some of the best people in the world. I've spent time in the public schools as a volunteer. I've spent time 8 years in the legislature as a leader there. I understand the issues before our state and many of the solutions. I believe that our families deserve and want better education for their kids, high-paying jobs for their kids and grandkids, safe neighborhoods, affordable insurance, zero state income tax. We can do all of those things, and I believe I'm the best candidate to do that. Check me out at SharonHewitt.com, and you can read the Hewitt blueprint on how I plan to do it.
Thank you. Mr. Wagersback?
You know, I'm asking Louisiana voters to believe that this is the opportunity to write the great Louisiana comeback story. If you think about it, when we get hit by a storm or any type of tragedy, what do? We put our guard down, we put our notions down, and we help our fellow man. That's all we think about. We all become one Louisiana. We are in a storm right now. It is unaffordable to live here with insurance and inflation. Our schools are not meeting the needs of parents. Crime is plaguing our cities. We are losing jobs and people to other states. We are in the eye of a storm. We just don't realize it because there's no named entity in the Gulf. It's time for us to treat this like we respond to every other sense of adversity, like Louisianans always do. Rally together, put solutions over sound bites, put people over politics, and elect someone new who wants to come in and bring people together and drive solutions that can make it easier for us to live here. There's an economic boom going around the South right now. We can benefit if we take the steps to march together in unison to create the new Louisiana we all deserve.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lundy?
The problem with our state today is what's sitting around on both sides of me. You know, the extreme red fighting the extreme blue, and nothing gets accomplished at the legislature. That's why I'm an independent. And I know 800,000 single moms could care less whether Jeff Landry's here tonight. You know, 1 out of every 6 kids skip school every 30 days because they're being bullied. Our firemen, our policemen, our teachers are woefully underpaid. They could care less whether Jeff Landry's here today. That's why I'm an independent, and that's why I'm running for governor. And so, yes, our crime, our poverty, our education, they're all linked. Education's the answer to curing poverty. We can go in community by community. We can create redemption laws to where we can take adjudicated property and we can put it in the ownership of a team, and we can take private governmental partnerships and nonprofits, and we can transform this state city by city, parish by parish. There's money to do it.
Thank you.
I'll be the governor that does it.
Finally, Mr. Wilson.
First, thank you to the host of tonight's debate, and thank you for the viewers. And I hope you were able to see that there's a lot of deflection in this campaign. There's a lot of folks that are going to talk around the issues instead of doing what's right for you. I'm the only candidate with 25 years of service to this state, always serving you honorably, with transparency, with integrity, and with accomplishment. I've worked for Republican and Democratic administrations. I'm going to be a governor that's going to work to make sure the people of Louisiana are safer, smarter, healthier, and of course wealthier. And if it doesn't address any of those 4 issues, we shouldn't be wasting time on it. I'm the only candidate that has that proven record. I'm going to always show up for you. I'm going to show up in good times and in bad times. I'm going to show up when you need us the most. I'm not going to dodge the issues. I'm going to talk to you straight up, head on, and tell you what the truth is all the time. I'm the candidate that you need to lead us to the future because I've done it for 25 years, building bridges, working with Republicans and Democrats, bridges that are literal and figurative bridges. Visit us at WilsonForLouisiana.com, WilsonForLA.com.
Thank you very much, and thank all of you for coming out tonight. I think we've learned a lot about how you feel about some of the most important issues the state is facing right now in this race.
All right, and thank you so much for joining us for our statewide, and thank you to our statewide media partners as well for joining us for this debate. Have a great night.